Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the weekly series where I get to speak with you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections, finding out what got you into collecting in the first place and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. So then, some people think I look a bit like Frank LeBeouf. Others think I look a bit like Sir Patrick Stewart. But one thinks I'm like shit in a field. Now, the question on everybody's lips isn't who would say such a thing, but who is the guest on this week's episode? Well, why don't we all find out? Grab yourselves a cuppa, sit yourselves down and make yourselves comfortable, even dunk a biscuit, a chocolate digestive, a rich tea, or a jammy dodger, if that's what tickles your fancy. And you can do all that while we take a look at some of his collection in a musical montage. Okay, then, so yet again, another absolutely fantastic collection, and there's a hell of a lot going on in there. There's tables with loads of toys and stuff like that, and like sheds with boxes. So I want to find out what's going on there. Also, good to see Marvel getting some love. So we don't see too much Marvel on this series. Anyhow, let's get our guest on. It's a pleasure to welcome to the channel for the first time, Will from Wilhelm Toy and Hobby. Toy and Hobby. Oh my God, how are you, sir?
Stu,
All
how
good?
are you? Thank you so much
I'm
for
okay.
having me on. I'm really excited to get to speak to you one-on-one and
No,
spend
an
a little
absolute
time.
pleasure. An absolute pleasure. I'm so excited. I'm getting my merge waddled. So can you believe that? Can you believe that? It doesn't seem like it was a few weeks ago that we were talking on Largo's Lair.
That's right. We were talking music, and that was
We
a
were.
really fun journey you took us on. But
Yeah,
my first love is toys, so I really,
absolutely. And that's what we're going to be
really
talking about tonight. So tonight is all about you. I've got 10 questions for you, all about your collection and what got you into collecting and the like. So if you're ready, we'll crack on with the first question.
sure.
Let's get going. Okay, then. What toy lines were you into as a kid, and what are your standout memories of those toy lines?
Sure. Okay. So, born in the 70s, came of age in the 80s and, a late teen, early 20s in the 90s. So, most of my best toy memories are in the 80s.
Yeah.
And my number one toy line was absolutely G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Those
Oh,
three,
okay.
3/4 inch guys were it for me. I did dabble in other toy lines, certainly, but I always went back to
Yeah.
my love for those Joes. Yeah.
So, what other toy lines were you into then? Star Wars, He-Man, Transformers.
Sure. I kind of missed the boat on the original Kenner Star Wars line. I had a couple, and most of the time I just integrated them in with my G.I. Joes. As a matter of fact, I didn't see the Star Wars movies until they came out on like VHS or HBO or whatever
Yeah.
it was. I never caught them in the theaters. So the toys weren't really, my brothers had a couple, my friends had a couple. I thought, when I first saw the Jedi Luke with the green lightsaber and he's wearing that cool black outfit, I thought that was pretty swell. And, wanted one of those, but no, just had a couple of stragglers here or there. Never really got into Star Wars toys until later. Um, He-Man was pretty big for me. Masters of
Yeah.
the Universe, Transformers were very expensive. And although the cartoon was really cool, the toys were kind of all over the place. And I could get a handful of Joes for the same price as a Optimus Prime, and
Yeah.
I always would kind of pick that instead. But I did
Absolutely. So,
like them.
yeah. Sure. So, you say you have brothers. So,
Oh
did
yeah,
you like share your toys, or like did you get this like one each of the same thing, or did you get different bits
Stu.
and bobs?
Because I had brothers, just about everything I owned was shared.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
grew up in a household where, well, one, our room was shared, so all three of us slept in the same room. Um, we pretty much, gifts were given as like I talked to friends who had like a video game console and it was all theirs, and I'm
Yeah.
envious of it because that was not a thing that ever occurred in my home. It was for the family to
Yeah.
entertain us, and we had to take turns and learn how to do those things. But no, we
Mhm.
were very good at cooperating and maximizing our potential. There was never a situation where my brother wanted the same figure as us, because it was like, hey, if you get this one, I get that one, and he gets that one. Now we've got three. So we
Yeah.
would combine forces. And so my next oldest brother, the one that's closest to me, not so much into toys. He really wasn't into it. He was more into sports and doing that kind of stuff. But since he's my awesome big brother, he would even sometimes, because my mom would say, you could each get a toy. He'd get a toy and just give it to me because he really
Oh
wasn't into
wow.
it, but he saw the opportunity, and
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
were always, my brothers were great. My oldest brothers probably influenced my tastes in comics and cartoons, music, and just about everything because he was into the toys too. So, um, he used to get a little mad at me because I didn't take care of them as well as he did. He's about 5 years older than me, so he was kind of getting out of them
Yeah.
as I was getting into them. But
But
yeah,
toys are meant to be played with, though, Will, weren't they? Do you know
sure.
what I mean?
Oh,
Back in the day, you wouldn't dream about keeping a figure in a packet
listen,
and putting them on the shelf, would you?
and if he's watching, my older brother Mike, I love him. He's the best. But yeah, I mean, come on, he made me my first handkerchief parachute for my GI Joes, and we were
Oh
throwing
wow.
them out the second story window and watching them float down, and
Oh, how cool is that?
and we did all kinds of cool stuff. So we had a lot of fun.
And what about playtime with friends? Did you ever go around a friend's house and take your stash around
That's
to your friend's
actually,
house and
and I've said it before. What made GI Joe my favorite toy line was because of the loading up a box, putting it on your skateboard, pushing it down the block. I grew up in a
yeah,
great neighborhood. cat or kitty corner, I guess, behind my house was my best friend's house. So all we
Mm.
had to do was just kind of hop a fence and I was in his yard. But, if we were carrying something, we'd probably go around the right way. Right across from him was another one of my buddies. And then right behind him was another one. So there's about four of us and we lived within. As a matter of fact, here's, a typical after school specials. We're watching the cartoons. He'd call me. He'd say, "Oh, you're watching G.I. Joe or Transformers?" I'd say, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, as soon as the commercial starts, I'm going to come over and go." He'd run and try to make it to my house before the commercial was over, and we'd keep watching the show together. So we were that close. But yeah, I'd bring a whole box of Joes over, vehicles, everything. We'd set them up in either his living room, much to his parents' chagrin.
Mm.
They did not like that because we'd use house plants as little sniper. We'd be moving furniture, creating,
Yeah, yeah.
barriers. Yeah. And typically those play sessions would go like 85% of it was just setting it up and arguing about the rules because we were just making it up as we went along. He's like, he can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, he could do that. And, we'd be going back and forth. We'd probably have a 5-minute battle, just, and then we'd spend the next 15% of the time arguing about whose was whose because we'd get them all mixed up and we never knew. He's like, you didn't bring that here. And I'm like, yes, I did. And then I'd go home and I'd see it sitting on my floor. I'd be like, oops, but it was all good.
Yeah. How much
trade back and
inspiration
forth.
did you get from the cartoons and the comic
So,
books for doing
that's the
missions?
funny thing is the cartoon for me wasn't the big inspiration. We actually, I hate to sound like, we were ahead of our time or too cool for it, but with two older brothers, kind of like the things that didn't make sense, they'd call it out all the time. They were always taking,
Yeah.
the, someone ejecting from a helicopter and then parachuting down. They'd say that doesn't make any sense and things like
Mm.
that. And, goofing on it. But the comic was a big influence. It was actually
Yeah.
one of the first comic series I got into. I remember getting the second issue. Through not nefarious means, but the convenience store down the block, they would rip the covers off at the end of the month and throw all the comics out. And us being a bunch of little, rapscallions, we'd go dig those out of the dumpster and take them home. And I had G.I. Joe #2. I remember reading it. I never saw the cover, but actually, my brother, awesome guy, he bought a Marvel comic subscription, which was available
Oh,
back
wow.
then. And the
Yeah.
first Marvel comic we got in the mail was G.I. Joe #21, the silent
Wow.
issue. So that was one of the first ones I remember pulling out of the mailbox, and my brother would let me read them. And of course, that issue didn't need reading. Um, so then he would put them in a long box and store them
Mm.
for us so I didn't destroy them. But yeah, that the comics influenced me a lot more, and my own imagination. For a lot of the
Yeah.
time, my GI Joes had squads that were both Cobra and GI Joe characters. It was just like whoever I thought looked the coolest.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Scrap Iron, who's like, he's a Cobra. He was like the leader of the enemy faction for me. I don't know why. I just liked him,
Oh,
and
cool. Awesome.
kind of made up my own little, kind of super teams, within
Yeah.
the series.
Mm. You touched on it and said that G.I. Joe was your standout toy line. So I'm guessing that would have been your favorite toy line as a kid. It didn't sort of alternate that the older you got, it changed, or was G.I. Joe your number one from start to
So
finish?
when like something new would come out, or maybe like Christmas, I remember I got a bunch of He-Man stuff.
Yeah.
And, I put the Joes in the closet for a while and I said, oh, He-Man's great. And I would cycle through them. So I have a box of this type of toy, a box of this type of
Yeah.
toy. And sometimes they all came together, but, I'd put some away. But G.I. Joe was always the one that I always went back to, like I'd say, hey, I haven't played with those in a while. Then I'd take them out and rediscover them again. And always go back to them. I'd go back to the other ones, but not for quite as long. But, if I had to make a choice, because I'm one of 6 kids,
Yeah.
so, 2 brothers. So a lot of times things had to go in the garage or the basement or, somewhere else because it was getting in people's ways. If I had to make the choice, I'd keep the Joes out and put something else away.
What was it about the G.I. Joes then that stood out for you to make
So
you want to keep going back to it?
I loved the articulation, how
Mm.
small they were, and specifically the vehicles. The
Yeah.
vehicles and play sets is really, I think, what did it for me. Also, I really liked back then, if you remember, you would get the vehicle and it would be on a sprue. And you'd actually have to assemble it and apply the decals, take the parts, put it together, almost like a snap together model kit. And
Yeah.
I used to really like building those with my brother when I was a kid. So it was like the next step. The fact that the figures all fully integrated into the vehicles, which was a thing, and it still frustrates me today. They'll put out a car and it'll be for a toy line, and then like the character can't go in it, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
that's the fun part. He goes in there and he drives around, So that's what. Yeah.
Well, we had the issue with the Action Force. So we had Palatoy's Action Force as kids, and that was the UK's equivalent to GI Joe. So we had all the vehicles, but the things with the Action Force figures, they were all 5p away, so they couldn't sit in the vehicles properly. They had difficulty getting them in and out of the vehicles. So that's why with the vehicles for Action Force, we had like who was it? We had Tripwire as Blades, and he was the SAS helicopter pilot, and he sat there and his legs could bend and stuff like that because he had the articulation. And it was the same with Snake Eyes. We had him. I think his name was Stalker, and he came with the SAS Panther,
which is oh my god, that vehicle. Oh, I love it. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, the Panther. Yeah, it looks so cool.
Do you have any Action Force?
I don't, and it's one of the things that someone asked me on another stream, like if you could get into one toy line, what would it be as a Palatoy Action Force? Because it wasn't until the late 20 teens that I really knew much about them. I just thought the comic was called Action Force, and over in the UK, I didn't know that they had their own distinct line that then evolved and kind of mirrored or paralleled the GI Joe. So it was like discovering GI Joe all over for me again when I started getting into those videos and learning more about them. But they're a little pricey, but not unaccessible, not totally unaccessible. But it is something that if I could, let's just say, unlimited budget, I'd buy them all like that.
Because after a while, the 5POA figures went to the wayside, and then we started getting the O-Ring figures over here. So we had like the likes of Duke, Gung Ho, Airborne, Stalker, Scarlet, but they were all on an Action Force card. So it was the red and yellow card, or the red and yellow and blue card with the bubble. And then after a while, when Palatoy went by the wayside, it then transitioned from Action Force to GI Joe. So but we had GI Joe International Hero as opposed to
I liked better. Hero. I thought an international, team of the best of the best from all different nations getting together to fight this global terrorist organization determined to rule the world would be better than a real American hero. But I think the Action Force story, the colors, the choices, just all of it, just to me is, in my opinion, better than the originals. So, I think it's an improvement.
You see, the thing is with me, as much as I like Action Force, I didn't really have like a massive draw to it as a kid because I was predominantly into Star Wars. So a friend of mine, he's an only child. I keep mentioning this guy. But he was my best friend as a kid, and I was around there every weekend and every day, practically during the summer holidays. And he was very much into GI Joe. So that's where my love from GI Joe came from. Was through him, and of course watching the cartoons and getting the comics and stuff. But yeah, I did collect Action Force briefly. I had the whole SAS Force set up because Action Force came in 4 different groups. You had Space Force, Q Force, Z Force, and SAS Force. So I had the whole of the SAS Force, had that 5POA, the vehicles, the figures, and I had the same with the Z Force. But I moved
the
to
Z Force and the SAS are like the sharpest looking color schemes. They're just beautiful. I love them. Yeah.
So I don't regret moving them on because I know my Z Force has gone to a good home. So Scuba's got my Z Force bits and bobs.
Oh, does he? Oh, and I've seen those. Yeah.
So so I didn't mind giving that away because I didn't have that much of a draw to it as a kid. I didn't.
Sure.
It was more GI Joe, and the things as well. It's only through this internet, not YouTube and the toy community, that I realized that there was a vehicle like the Flag, the Defiant, and the big command center, because back in the UK, well, obviously back then we didn't have internet and stuff like that, so we had
Yeah.
no idea these toys existed. So you had all this amazingly awesome stuff, which we would have just dreamed of having as a kid, but we never had that. We had to use like a tabletop as the flag and stuff like that. The planes coming to land and all that sort of stuff. But yeah. So anyway, moving on. When did you stop playing with your toys, and when did you become a collector?
So I would say I stopped around when I was, and I probably played with them a little longer than I should have been. So I was probably 15 or 16 when I finally put them down. And it was more of a, my friends would look at me like, what are you doing with all those? And I'm just like, I like them, and I was still actively buying them and asking my mom, like, hey, can I get this G.I. Joe? And I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
So I think it was like the summer of 1989, maybe 1990, that I kind of just stopped altogether. And then I became a collector, I would say about 5 years later, 94, 96. That's when I got a full-time job, had full-time money.
Yeah.
And I realized that toy stores were stock full of really cool stuff. It's actually this little guy right here is what got me back into collecting.
Let's get you on big. Who's this?
That's a Toy Biz Marvel 10-inch action figure.
Wow.
This might not be the exact same one because I think the sticker here is saying 97.
Yeah.
And it was probably a little earlier than that, but it was my 21st birthday. Actually, yeah, I can tell you exactly. It was 96. It was my 21st birthday. I had my own apartment. My brother was in the mall looking for something to buy me. He stopped in a KB toy store and he saw that they had all this Marvel stuff. I didn't even know it existed. He bought me Silver Surfer because he knows that's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And an inflatable Spider-Man that hilariously, I attached to the roof of my car and went driving around town. And then until I got in trouble, the police told me you can't do that. But it's like a 4-foot inflatable Spider-Man. He bought it at a comic shop. And I was just looking at this thing and he bought it for me just as a, kind of remember we used to read comics and have all this fun. And look, they make Silver Surfer action figures now. I don't think they ever made them before. Secret Wars was, a line I had when I was a kid, but I don't think I had all the characters or knew what they made. Anyway, I stopped by a KB toy store and these things are like, even the small guys, the Toy Biz packaged ones, they were like $3.33 each. And I'm doing the math in my head. I got a whole paycheck here. These are 3 for $10. I could get them all. And I must have walked out of KB Toys with 2 big bags, And what I did back then was my first apartment. I went and bought the pegboard from the hardware store, and I put up strips, and I turned my entire room in my apartment. It was my first solo room, not sharing with my brothers. And I bought the little pegs, and I had the whole room covered in toys, like I lived in a toy store.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was big kid money with a little kid brain, and adult money. And I just kept buying them, and I loved them. I opened them up. I played with them. Then I went back and I looked for all my old stuff, and started buying up lots of G.I. Joe stuff that I didn't have when I was a kid. It just reignited it, and I really haven't. I've taken breaks throughout the years, but I haven't really ever stopped.
Wow. You said something that's intrigued me, and when you said you carried on playing with your toys maybe a little bit longer than you should have, why do you think that you carried on playing with them a bit longer than you should have? Do you feel you should have stopped playing with them?
Because I had a lot of I had a lot of friends growing up, a lot of kids from the neighborhood coming and going, and they were moving on to different things, primarily music, girls, and things that you inhale or drink, and I just don't think I was ready for that. And there was a lot of, I guess, peer pressure to grow up and try these new things. And I did, sure enough, I was hanging out with the boys and trying that stuff, but I didn't like doing that. I grew up, like I said, in a family of 6, shared a room with 2 brothers. Almost every day after school, it's running around the
Mm.
neighborhood. I didn't really have much time to myself. So my time with my toys later on was my time to get away from it all.
Yeah.
So if I was just in my room, which my room was like my basement, after a certain age, I just kind of, we had a little like, kind of the basement was unfinished, but we had a carpet and a TV and a sofa down there. And I used it more than anyone else, so I just started
Mm.
staying down there permanently. It kind of made it my room, even though there's no door on it or anything like that. But I occupied it. I like squatters' rights. I just moved in, and yeah, it just kind of
Yeah.
became my room. Eventually, moved all my stuff down there. And yeah, anytime there was no one around, it wasn't doing something with the boys, or my brothers or sisters were out doing something. I would spend that time by myself playing with my toys, and
Mm.
I just felt at peace. It
Mm.
was
It,
good.
it's interesting you saying that, because it just goes to show you how much times have changed. Because you say that kids back then, yeah, like that peer pressure and stuff like that. It's been mentioned time and time again by myself anyway, that this day and age, kids very rarely play with toys these days. Very rarely
Yeah,
play with toys.
I
They're
will.
probably
I
stopping
I
at an
will
earlier age than what
share.
we ever did.
Yeah, so I have a ton of toys displayed around my house, and I
Mm.
have grandkids, and they come over. I have 2 boys, and I thought they were gonna be so into all my toys, and just not so much. We had a few
No?
years,
Yeah.
but I did have my 10-year-old granddaughter over last weekend, and she was bored, and I said, "Well, you want to play with these?" And I took a bunch of toys down, and it was interesting because at first she was waiting for me to show her how to play, like prompting her. We brought a base down, a bunch of vehicles, a bunch of characters. She asked me
Yeah.
who they were. I explained it. But after a while, I stepped away. And when I came back, she was doing that thing that, we used to do, was,
Yeah.
playing with them. And I kind of hung back, and sh- it's it's there. Children still have that imagination, and they still have that thing. I just think they're distracted by the
Uh,
easier thing, the
yeah.
thing that's just in your face. And
Yep.
I think given the time and maybe the right environment, kids would like that. And peer pressure.
Mm.
Kids are not going to be at school if you tell them, "Oh, my grandpa let me play with his Batman toys." No one's going to go, "Oh, that's really cool." But if she went to school on Monday and said, "My grandpa got me a new iPhone," everyone would be like, "Oh, that's so cool." So
Yeah. No, no.
there
It's
is
like,
like that.
it's weird how times changed.
Hmm.
It really is. But anyhow. So what toy lines do you currently collect at the moment?
Sure. So still always collecting GI Joe.
Yeah.
Um, and then okay, so that evolved into pretty much anything 1/18 scale. I'm interested in. That's what it pretty much evolved to. A lot of time in the late 90s, I spent kind of, there was that time where there was no GI Joe on store shelves. So I looked for alternative things
Yeah.
that were compatible with. So, a lot of knockoff toys, um, Lennard's the core, or, even Star Wars Power the Force 2 stuff. I would buy that and use it as GI Joe vehicles, or just the
Mm.
Star Wars stuff because it was really cool and fun.
Yeah.
But my absolute, I did take a long break to be a father and raise my boys. They're both adults now, and around 2018, I got really heavy back into toy collecting. One of the toy lines responsible for that is Spin Master's 4-inch Batman and DC line.
Yeah.
They are made for kids. They are marketed for kids. And when I usually bring it up in groups and stuff, people are like, "Yeah, I don't collect those." I missed the whole Marvel Legends, the 6-inch kind of renaissance when those kind of took over. Black Series became the dominant thing. I missed that time from early 2000s until the late 20 teens. I was kind of out of the game. So there's a lot that I missed.
Yeah.
I never just got into them. I think they look great and I appreciate them, for what they are, but they don't live here, I
Yeah.
don't long for them. They don't do anything for me. That Spin Master line, I'll tell you why it did something for me. One, I thought it was really cool to have Batman who could jump in a GI Joe vehicle and ride away or fly away, and vice
Mm.
versa. But it's a complete line with heroes, villains, playsets, and vehicles, and they are super affordable and very accessible. So
Yeah.
while I'm talking to my toy friends and they're going, Target screwed me out of this exclusive, or the pre-order didn't come in, I just go while I'm grocery shopping and I see Batman standing there. Oh, there's a new one. He's only $8. I'll buy two. It's great. It's just great. So I've
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
lot of great fun. And that line came out 2019, maybe 2020. And I've been heavily collecting them since. Marvel just released a kind of a competitor to that with their Marvel Epic Heroes series, which has
Mm.
Marvel characters now in a 4-inch scale. Um, really enjoying those. Love them. I have tons of Star Wars Power of the Force 2 stuff that I absolutely love.
Mm.
I'm going to say I just got into, a friend of mine, anything 118. I'm there. I'm down. I'm down for it. I want to create this whole, as a matter of fact, my channel was originally called 118 Scale Action Figure Universe. It's a
Wow.
mouthful, and I changed it I didn't want to, and my first video was actually on a knockoff toy that you find in discount stores. Uh, but I bought it because it was compatible with 118 scale figures.
Mm.
And that's the very first video I ever did, so.
Wow. Wow. See, I've seen those Toy Biz. Did you say Toy Biz?
Oh, well, Toy Biz stuff
Oh
was
no, it's
heavy
not
in the
Toy Biz, Spin
90s.
Masters, Spin
Spin
Masters. Sorry,
Master.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've
sure.
seen
Yeah.
those, yeah.
They're not for
But
everyone.
yeah, no, I mean, I like them. I mean, I like Batman, but the thing is, I kind of get to a point where I go into a shop and I think, oh, I mean, for me, 3 3/4 inch is, especially Star Wars wise, I guess, and GI Joe as well. But I am partial to the odd 6-inch figure, and
Yeah.
some people, they will just religiously collect 6-inch, others will collect just 3 3/4. Some like myself, we collect both, but sometimes I just wish I could either collect one or the other. It would make my life so much easier. It really
Well,
would.
I think that's the decision I made was, like when G.I. Joe Classified came out, I actually was all about them at first. I got to about the end of the first series, and then I was looking at my shelves, and I'm like, okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with 3 3/4 inch action figures in it.
Yeah,
And I just said, I could buy this figure for 25 or $30, or I'm like, I could buy two or more smaller figures.
yeah,
And once
yeah,
again, and add to this collection. So,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, they
I
take
made
up
that
less space as well,
decision.
don't they?
I've got so many friends that are into the 6-inch. There's nothing Marvel Legends, Black Series, or anything that comes out that I don't get to see them
Yeah,
open up and play with. So I just
yeah,
live vicariously through them. And that's good enough for me.
yeah. I wish, because I initially started out just collecting the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures, the canon ones from my childhood.
Hmm.
Um, and then 2020 happened, and start watching YouTube and seeing all these wonderful toys and lines that I
Yeah.
never knew existed. And I was like, oh, okay. So then, you know, I'm very easily influenced. Will, that's the problem. And then yeah, one thing leads to another. Then you start like, I like that, and it's easily done. Easily done. Do you have a grail piece? And when I say grail piece, it's not something that has to be, expensive and you're going to pay a load of money on it. It could be something that you've seen 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and you thought, oh yeah, I'll pick that up, and you go back and get it. It's gone. You've not seen it since. Is there anything like that
Sure.
in your collection you would like?
I would say it's that Palatoy Robo Skull, the original one.
Okay, yeah,
That is something I don't think I could easily or excessively get. And the first time I ever saw it, it just blew my mind. I was like, I
yeah,
have to have that. That thing is just marvelous. Um, but chances of me getting one, probably slim to none. One, uh, I'm also pretty practical when it comes to it. I even no matter how much I want something, I won't overpay for it. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. I really couldn't just, although, I'm susceptible to all, um, kind of urges and things like that. But that Palatoy Robo Skull is one of the more rare vehicles. I mean, the entire Palatoy Action Force line is something I would love to have, but um, yeah, it would probably be the original one though. I know they
That's
made a
awesome.
new one, the Mark II,
Yeah.
and once again, that was several $100s. I think 250 or $300, and I probably wasn't really. I don't think I had the opportunity. I think I found out about it after
After
my
the
my
event.
time to
Yeah.
get it passed, but probably something I wouldn't pull the trigger on right now. But let's just say I found one in a flea market and it was a little beat up and
Mm.
played with. Oh, that would make my day, even if I had to pay.
It's really weird you saying that about the Robo Skull because as a kid, I always saw it in the comics and stuff. Well, we had Battle Action Force comics, and it was
Sure.
like a newspaper style. It's like a big old comic, and it was like a newspaper, but it just had color in it. You just read it and stuff like that. But I was never that impressed with the Robo Skull. Never impressed with it. Isn't it funny how your thought process and your opinion on something changes as you get older? Because I've
Sure.
seen that, and I think that is an incredible looking toy. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's like a monkey skull, or maybe it's a
Yeah,
human skull. I don't know, but it just freaks me out and I love it. It's just so weird and unique, and there's nothing else
yeah.
like it that I'm drawn to it. And
Mm,
like I said, the whole discovery of the Palatoy kind of parallel universe of GI Joe intrigues me. And then that one toy is just one of those things where, and my answer could change. If you ask me tomorrow, it might be something else. But just
could
right now,
change, could change. And with
those are
the RoboScale Mark II, they've made it accessible for both 6-inch and 3 3/4 inch, right?
which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah,
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 yeah, and it looks marvelous. But um, yeah, if I could get one, I'd probably get one of those too. But
mm,
it's just
yeah,
one of those things. Not knocking it. I think it's absolutely brilliant, but um, not. It doesn't. The original one's the one that I would cherish. That would be a grail for me. The other one would
yeah,
be awesome to have, but it wouldn't be a grail.
yeah. I get that. I get that. Um, do you have a sentimental piece in your collection or a prized piece in your collection?
Well, yeah, I mean Silver Surfer, the guy that started it all, he kind of lives right up above my little desk and workstation here.
Mm,
Um, just because my brother gave it to me, and um, that one. But I do have a couple pieces from my childhood that
yeah,
um, I've got a carded. I've got a carded, like a couple carded GI Joes that were duplicates, and I remember my brother saying, not like, "Hey, put this away; it may be worth money someday." He just said, "Hey, keep it in the package. Put it in my closet," because he had this little footlocker in his closet. And he
yeah.
said, "Put it in there. If you break yours, you always have a backup right here." And then we forgot about it. And then when we were like in our
Oh, wow.
20s, we opened it up, we found it, and just last year, I was moving and I thought I lost them in several moves. I thought I lost them because it was in a specific box, and somehow I don't remember. You have kids and you lose half your brain, right? So
Yeah.
I had repackaged it at some point into a new box, and I opened this box up thinking it was nothing important, and there he was. So just last year, I found my carded Duke from when I was a kid. That's a really,
Oh, wow.
really great memory.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I've asked this question to a few people. If you could go back in time, what would you what would you say to your younger self? Would you say, right, look after those, because they'd be worth something in when you're older, or would you be just happy watching yourself having the good time with the toys that you had?
I think that the second answer there, I would probably just be happy watching, even if just for a day. I mean, those movies where you switch bodies with yourself in the past, like that's the way I
Yeah.
would want to do it, where I'm me as a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, and I get to just go on vacation as me as a 12-year-old for a day and kind of
Yeah.
just relive one of those summer days, or just hanging out and having fun. That would be more important to me than the thing. But if I had the money, yes, I would get a what is it, a weatherproof storage container. I would bury it in the desert somewhere,
Yeah.
fill it with toys, and I go retrieve it now.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's another interesting question. If Would you enjoy collecting as much as you do if you had unlimited funds of money?
I don't
Would
think
that take
so.
away would that take away something for you, or would you be just like, yeah, I'll buy that, I'll buy that, I'll buy that?
Yeah, I think that what is it? They always say, what is it? Getting what you wished for. You know what I mean? Is like the
Yeah.
biggest curse. And I mean, I very much, not to get off toys, but I feel like part of society now is, the worst thing that could happen for people is for all their wishes to come true. I feel like a lot of the societal problems we see people complaining about,
Mm.
or I don't. To me, it's because we've got it so good that we kind of have the luxury of complaining about these minor things. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I don't think I would enjoy it as much if I just had everything.
Yeah.
Let's just say I had a warehouse or airplane hangar, and I could set up all the toys I want anywhere I want. Once I was done with it, I'd be like, okay, what now? There's
Yeah,
no
I
there's
guess.
no hunt, there's no journey, there's no achieving anything. So I think getting those things in kind of small pieces and the experiences you have while acquiring them is the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. With some of your photographs that you sent me, I noticed there was a few tables there with some bits and bobs on those tables.
That's right. Yeah, that was
Yeah. So what?
that
Yeah,
was
go on.
last year. I made the decision to just sell it all. And
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so I failed miserably at it. So, it's a fun story, but, not to talk about myself or anything, but September 4th marks my 1 year being on YouTube, which is just
Okay,
in a
cool.
couple of days. And part of that process was that I made a couple connections at Joe Fest,
Yeah.
found out that one of the attendees there who I was friendly with lives in the same city as me. And he said, "Oh, I host a toy show. Would you ever consider, coming and selling some of your stuff and looking at my storage unit, looking at my collection?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's time. I'm going to go ahead and do it."
Mm,
And a lot of this stuff has sat in storage for years.
yeah.
So a good friend of mine hosted me on his channel, because I told him, I said, "I'm going to be loading up carloads of stuff." And he said, "Why don't you unbox it and show us what you got on your channel, on my channel?" And he hosted me, and we had this like 3-hour stream where I kind of unboxed and showed off all this stuff that I had sitting in storage for years. Um, then I did a couple live streams of my own where I continued the trend. Even the community helped me price and gauge, how much I should charge for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
The big day came. I drove everything to the place. You saw the pictures. I had
Yeah.
a nice spread there, and I sold two items. One, the
No
guy who was
way.
running the show bought one thing for me because he felt bad, and the other one was some guy just walked up and bought something. But yeah, totally struck out. Had to pack everything up, and I'm looking at my garage now, going, "Man, it's been another year." Oh, so I was
Wow.
ready to give up. To kind of.
Have you not tried to do anything like that again? Like go to a local toy fair or
So here's, I love them. I want to keep them. I don't want to get rid of them. I really don't. And
yeah.
I don't want to sell them to a reseller. I don't. I want to sell them to people in the community. Someone who's going to collect them. And
Mm,
I know I could clearance price them out, but I don't need the money and I don't need the space. I mean, well, I could use the space, but I don't
yeah.
have to sell them. Obviously, if I had to sell them, I could just go, sell them all in one big bulk shot to someone, for resale or redistribution. And yeah, for many years I've just been holding on to the the belief that, my kids will grow old and move out and I'll inherit a room where I could set everything up in, and maybe, that hasn't happened. And, I'm still holding out hope for it. But if I knew someone really was into something, and I did sell some of the stuff to some of the people watching and some of my buddies on stream,
Yeah.
I even gifted them some of the items. I'd rather see it go that way. I'd love to sell it less than market value, but a fair price, to a fellow collector, or a buddy deal. But yeah, it's something I just have to reevaluate. This show was just minutes from my house. It was a toy show. They don't happen here too often, so I kind of just seized the opportunity. I'm not a big fan of shipping or packing stuff. It kind of drives me nuts having to pack and
I get that.
ship it, and I get anxiety from the minute I write the label to the moment the person confirms that they got it. I am high anxiety. I'm like, I put the wrong number. I put the wrong name. I put this wrong.
I've got to say, I think the biggest issue for me would, like, sending parcels over in where you are in the States, would be the state of the parcel arriving at the buyer's house. I mean, you just, I mean, I've seen, people with their boxes crushed and stuff like that from deliveries, and, the state of the stuff in Walmart or Target in, their deliveries. And that's one thing that really baffles me as to how and why that happens. I mean, that would be the thing that would get me the most. I have no issue sending anything at all in this country because I've got a 99% chance that it's going to reach the person okay. And, but seeing some of the boxes that arrive with you guys from Amazon, or I don't know, Hasbro Pulse, or even from Target, or just general, I just don't get it. Well, that really does annoy me. I don't even live there.
And there's so much I can't say enough about just, handing something over the table to someone and them handing me money and it's just a done deal. I just, I would love that. And if I had that opportunity again, there are a lot of toys I may have bought, and I look at them and I don't love them. So I could easily part with them.
Okie dokie. Righty ho then. So if your other half came into you and said, Will, you can only collect one toy line going forward from now on, what would that toy line be, and why?
Oh, surprise here. It's going to be G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero, and by association, Palatoy Action Force, because they are pretty much the same thing. So I think I could.
Oh, okay, that's it. Like, I like what you've done there. I like what you've done there. Very clever.
I could get myself into that, but as much G.I. Joe, Real American Hero stuff as I have, I got a long way to go. I'm not a very organized person. I'm not very meticulous, and I don't keep checklists. I don't know what I have. I probably have doubles of things that I didn't know I had already, and I bought a second time. I am collecting chaos, and I actually admire my friends that keep meticulous lists, and they know what they have and all of that, and they even have a shopping list when they go to conventions. I'm digging through the bins going, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. I'm just buying stuff. I suck when it comes to that. So there's a lot.
It's funny how people. It's funny the habits people have, aren't they? I mean, the habits people have, as in, I've got a toy fair coming up that'll be going to, and I've done that before. I've made a list of things that I want to get, and I've come away with absolutely bugger all. I've just like, what was the point of that? You go around and look, and they, you ask for certain things. No, we haven't got that. Well, we only sell that with this. Well, I don't want that. I just want that. No. Oh, for goodness sake. So I'm going in to this toy fair with a totally open mind. I've not got anything, planned that I want to get. If I see something that stands out, I'll get it. If not, then I'm quite happy to just walk away. But going back to the G.I. Joe, I mean, for me, my favorite years was 1982 to around 86, 87. After that, it started getting a bit, I think, modern and sci-fi type sort of things. And
sure. As a matter of fact, and I even aged out of it, probably around those years, but I still picked up things here and there. But I will tell you, and that was the belief I held, and kind of just dismissed everything that happened after '97 for many
Mm.
years. And I think it was like last year I started watching was Articulated Chad, or Itch Chad now, and he does this Neon at Night where he highlights some of the those later years. There are a couple cool characters. Obviously, some
Mm.
of them are still, that thing. I think there's one. No, thought I had one right here on the shelf, but
Okay.
he showed this. I think it was Eels version 2.
Yeah.
The Cobra, and he just looked really cool. And he came with like a little robot shark, and I was like, oh. And I found myself buying them while I'm watching his show. I'm on eBay purchasing the figures he's showing. He's going through the later years. So there are
Yeah.
some gems in those later years, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I agree with you. The 82 through like 87 is peak G.I. Joe for me.
Mm. Mm.
All my
Yeah.
favorites.
No,
right there.
likewise. Absolutely. Um, what set you on the road to doing a YouTube channel, and did you have any influences? And I've got to say, congratulations. I think you've just reached a certain milestone, haven't you? So,
Yeah, that's right. And,
well done on that.
I'm
Awesome
really
stuff.
happy. So in the future, or by the time this airs, it'll have happened in the past. But
Yeah.
I'm doing just a fun little stream tomorrow. And, we're going to be celebrating not only one day shy of 1 year on YouTube,
Mm.
but 500 subs. And I initially started this as a way of, it's a means to an end, I guess. So I have no aspirations of becoming a influencer or whatever, a pseudo celebrity or anything. It's an outlet for me to share my passion for toys with a
Yeah.
community and to reciprocate from that community. So it started with watching toy YouTube channels.
Yeah.
Some of the first ones, and that was probably about 2018 when I got back into it. But that would start with your retro blasting, analog toys with their coverage of the Palatoy Action Force, which like that got me.
Yeah.
But um, the Toy Palloy, I love that channel. Uh, you know, just all the big channels. I guess I was watching them all back around 2017, 2018. And never commenting, never really communicating, never really talking. And I would say after 2020, something happened. A lot of people had a lot of time at home. People were
Mm.
getting they were doing these live streams. The community was building. You'd start talking to someone in the chat room, and maybe, 2 or 3 weeks go by, and then you're having a side conversation while the live stream's going on, and then you guys decide to take it over onto Facebook or Instagram, or
Yeah.
shoot you an email. And that's what happened. I started watching Grindhead Jim. He's a YouTuber. I don't know if you see his streams, but he does a stream
Yep.
every Monday. He does Toy Grinds Live every Monday. And for me, he was the community builder, because it was that group um, that he interacted with the chat a lot more than a lot of these bigger channels. And almost everyone that was in those chats I've become personal friends with. So, it's one of those things where it kind of stepped over there. So for me, it was back in the day, it was talking to your friends at the comic shop or toy shop or on the corner about the
Yeah.
things you liked, right? That's how you shared your passion for it. Um, in the early 2000s, you'd go on these message boards, but that was, you would type a message, and then maybe someone would see it, maybe they would talk. But it
Yeah.
was a sharing. It wasn't the same. When I got back into toy collecting, Facebook toy groups were the big thing.
Yep.
Got into them, and sure enough, if you're in a big enough group, you could post something, and unless it's like, I don't know, most of those the posts that do well are just of a certain variety. And if you want to have a real conversation about it, you're not going to have that. Then it was in the comments. And then I found myself writing books in the comments, and no one's reading them because, they're talking about something. I'm going, oh, I know about that. That's
Yeah.
something. And the moment's gone and it's fleeting. So I have all these things. I have a lot of things that I don't see videos on too. So a lot of the things in my collection, I'm looking up videos about them to see if there's someone else out there who's into them just like me. Hence why in 2020, I know my channel. So this is a brief explanation. I did make the channel in 2020.
Yep.
I made about 3 or 4 videos and then I just gave it up and I didn't do anything on it. My first live stream where I had an audience and actually talked toys was 1 year ago, 2 days from now.
Wow.
So that's kind of my 1 year anniversary. I didn't take it seriously. So
Yeah.
I just thought, no one's talking about these things. Maybe I want to talk about them. Maybe there's someone. So I did the reverse. Instead of searching for someone who was talking about or sharing a passion for the things I enjoyed, I said, well, why don't I put it out there? And maybe there's people out in the community that also share my joy for these things, and they'll come to me. And that's what's happened. So
has that surprised you? Has that taken you back a bit?
yeah,
Was
it
you
really
expecting,
has.
to take off?
So I thought that it was an easy way. Also, getting on video, talking about something and just showing it is so much easier than taking pictures, typing up a description,
Yeah.
waiting for people to see it, waiting for comments, then replying to the comments. So you're saying it one time, hey, this is the thing, and here it is, and here's what I think about it. Have a great day, everyone. So most of the videos I was publishing in the beginning were, hey, I'm talking to my group of 10 to 20 friends that I interact with in the toy community.
Yeah.
Um, if other people see it, that's great. If other people enjoy it, that's even better. But I'm really just kind of just jumping on and talking about these toys. And it's funny because, like I said, I had originally named my channel 1/18 scale, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Then I said, well, there's other toys I like. So I don't want to just limit myself to 1/18 scale toys because I liked classifieds. I liked Valorverse Action Force. I liked other lines. I'm going to just change it to Wilhelm Toy and Hobby, right? And then that's just a general name. It doesn't really force me into anything. And here we are about a year later, and I do a show every Sunday about 1/18 scale toy lines and toy news. It's the show for the rest of us because everyone, like I said, are 6-inch lovers. They love all that. All the news shows cover the new releases of those toys, and I see 1/18 scale stuff just kind of being glossed over. So I just thought and yes, I found people that I never knew before the show. They've reached out to me. The community is the part of that show that excites me. I
Yeah.
get Instagram messages. Hey, look what I found out in the wild. Hey, did you hear about this new toy line? No, I didn't. Now I want them. I've had a couple guests on that have come on and talked to me about Common Rider. It's a Japanese show that's been on for 50 years, and they have a 3 3/4 inch toy line. I bought a whole case of them after that show, so it's a lot of fun. I originally expected, like I said, a handful of my friends to watch it. And the fact that, yeah, I don't think I deserve 500 subscribers because like I said, I'm not doing anything anyone else out there couldn't do. I always say it, I'm just a jerk with some toys on YouTube, just like everyone else.
No, I think it's a fantastic achievement, and it's really difficult, I think, these days for YouTubers. I mean,
yeah.
I know
Stu, do you have anyone in your life, personal life, offline, like does your spouse or your family share your love for toys? Do you have people close to you that
my wife
understand? Or she does.
My wife.
Wonderful.
I mean, I'm so lucky. I mean, my collection spread over. I mean, we live in a small flat. Well, say small flat. It's fairly spacious, but so I've got shelves in the bedroom with action figures on them. I've got the collection room here, the front room. We don't have ornaments. We just have collectibles, action figures, toys.
That's
My
great.
wife's the same, and now we've got it in. So 3 rooms, or no, 4 rooms in the house now are just it's just a hobby and the passion, which is kind of like
wonderful,
taken over.
Do you
It
feel
is.
fulfilled that you could talk about these things and share your passion for it, and it's reciprocated? I don't have that in my personal life. I don't have any coworkers, family members, associates, friends. I don't have any real life friends. I work, I come home, and I spend time with my family. That's all I do. I don't really have time for anything else. So this is my escape. This is
Yeah,
getting away from it
absolutely.
all, talking
Absolutely.
about something I love, things that I would think to myself while driving, listening to someone else doing a
Mm.
YouTube show. And so for once a week, I get to just have fun and talk toys.
No,
And
but that's awesome. That is
yeah,
awesome. And it's funny you saying about people coming to meet, I mean, getting to meet people. I met you through Jim Largo, and I
that's
met
right.
Jim Largo through Goji-chon. Now I've known Goji for like near
Oh,
coming up 3, 4 well, over 3 years now. So
yeah.
I
I
mean,
love him.
and
Yeah.
what a guy he is. I mean, I just think he's an
Yeah.
absolute awesome guy, and he was, designed my logo and stuff like that. So,
He's the best. Yeah.
he's awesome. So, if it wasn't for Goji, I wouldn't have been chatting to yourself or, with the likes of Jim Largo, and I think what you two do is I'd really, you two work so well together. I think that's just so cool.
Yeah, and I met
You
Jim
know,
in a Patreon hangout for Grindhead Jim.
yeah,
We were just hanging out. We were watching a movie that Grindhead Jim was featured in.
mm,
He did a private showing for us in a Patreon live stream. Just being friendly with each other in the chat. And
yeah,
yeah, as far as our collecting styles go, we're complete opposites. He's into
yeah,
all the big stuff. I was always bringing up my Spin Master Batman and going, "Hey," waving it in front of the camera, and no one cared. But when I did a video on it or I talked about it, they were like, "Oh, you know what? There might be something there." When they see me kind of sharing my passion for it, I think Grinded Jim went ahead and bought some of those Marvel figures, and he said, "Hey,
mm.
Will, I'm actually playing with them. It's a lot of fun." So that
So
was
you
neat.
you you have influenced. You are an influencer then because you've
Yeah,
influenced him. So
I am.
without
Yeah,
realizing it, But the thing is, Will, I'm you're obviously enjoying it, and you get enjoyment out of it, which is the most important thing. And I always go by the saying, "There's no wrong way to collect, and there's no right way to collect. It's all about personal preference and stuff like that." And if you can have that kind of rub off onto someone else and maybe get them into a line that they didn't think they were going to get into, then you have indirectly kind of, I guess, influenced
sure.
them.
And I've been
You know,
influenced, by Beta Ray Bob came out my show talking about Common Rider. I'm over there shopping for them that night, because they're
yeah,
so cool. And as soon as I got them, I opened them up. I sent him pictures of them, and he must feel great doing that to me. I think in my
awesome.
post about 500 subs, I said, "Thank you for all being, enablers of my hobby," because, um, the feedback you get from people watching or enjoying them, it kind of makes you want to do more. So
No,
you,
absolutely, absolutely. No, that's a awesome achievement, mate. Well done, well done. So we're coming up to the top of the hour. I've got a couple more
yes, sir.
questions for you, so we'll
Mhm.
we'll crack on. What gives you that toy collecting buzz?
Sure. The thrill of the hunt. There's
Yeah,
the thing I loved most about my childhood was the fact that there was no internet. There was no previews. I wasn't seeing what was coming out months ahead. I would go store shelf, look up, see a character that I never even imagined they would make.
mm,
Sure, the cross sell kind of spoiled things for you, but going to a flea market, a toy show, a garage sale, and pulling something out of a box that you didn't even
yeah,
know existed, and then that leads you down a line. Um, you know, that's it. It's the thrill of discovery. That's why I'm
absolutely.
looking for alternative lines that are compatible with the 1/18 scale, but maybe I've never collected or heard of before.
Mm. So you said about there's no internet. I mean, back in the 80s, obviously there wasn't any internet, and I guess we wouldn't didn't like know any different, really, did we? But me personally, like you, I like getting stuff from a store or from a toy fair. The one good thing I do like about the internet is that we get to do things like this, and it brings the world together,
Oh,
the toy
absolutely.
collecting community together. So that is the one good thing, that I like about it. I mean, I know you've got information at the click of a finger now and stuff like that, and I think if the only time I ever really use the internet is for doing stuff like this. Really, I'd very rarely go on there, if I'm honest. I mean, Facebook and Instagram, but then that's all toy related.
Sure.
Anything else, I don't really sort of like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyhow, what does your collection mean to you?
Sure. It's a representation of, I guess, fun. It's just fun. It's not all of the other things out there in the world. It's not all
Mm,
the other stuff. It's escape. It's fun. It's whatever you want it to be. Um, that's why I like them. When I pick up a toy, even if I'm not playing with it, I'm not flying it around making helicopter noises. In my head, I
mm.
am.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it, I'm holding it, and I'm looking at the details, and I'm going, oh, yeah, that's, how this works. It's, it's that. It's fun. It's escape. It's fun for me. And that's why I love them.
Awesome stuff. Nostalgia.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. Awesome
Yeah.
stuff. Well, that has come to the end of the chat, my friend. I've got one last question for you. Where can people find, what are your platforms? Because I will leave a link to your social media platforms
Sure.
in the
Yeah.
description below.
So you could find me on, my channel, Wilhelm Toy and Hobby, where, really I make videos about the stuff that I like. No real rhyme or reason. One week might be some dollar store knockoff toys. The other week it may be the latest, Marvel or Spin Master goodie. But every Sunday at 3:30 p.m., I host it's called the 1-8 team, named by my friend Jim, Grind to Jim, where we talk about all things 1/18 scale. It's a community driven show. Join the team, come on, talk about it, share pictures of your collection, talk about customs you've created, show me news if I've missed it. I try to highlight any new exciting things coming out and
Mm.
just share our love for all things 1/18 scale. Not knocking anything else, but this is just a place where we could hang out and celebrate our favorite scale. I'm also heavily featured on my buddy Jim Largo's channel, Largo's Lair. Jim started his YouTube channel just a few months after me, I think in January of 2023. And together we co host and we've got a variety of shows. It started with doing an Action Force show based on the Valaverse Action Force called the AF3, where we talk about the lore of the characters of the Action Force team. Not the toys themselves, but their character profiles.
Yeah.
We that springboard to Largo's Lounge, where we do the music show, the Infinite Playlist, where we don't talk about toys at all. We talk about the music that makes people's hearts sing, and that's a really great thing too. That's a great community thing. Like I said, later in life, a lot of my influences were from friends, family, brothers, sisters, things like that. And as you get into the toiling, just doing the 9 to 5, coming home, doing the same routine, you don't discover new music. It's
Mm.
great to hear what other people bring to the playlist because it's stuff I never would have thought of listening to unless they brought it to my attention. So that's what I love about that. It's the discovery. Uh, Jim does a variety of other shows, and we do have some other. He's got a Beasties and Baddies show where we talk about some of the monsters or the bad guys, villains, and just a bunch of other things. But those are the main places you find me.
Awesome. Awesome. So I will leave a link to your social media platforms in the description below.
Oh,
I don't know
thank
why I
you.
always get tongue tied when I come to say that. I'm thinking, does that sound right? Does that sound right? It does. So yeah, awesome stuff. Will, I've got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for
Oh, the
taking
pleasure's
time out to
all
do this.
mine.
It's been absolutely awesome, and
I
getting
can't
to.
believe you had me on. I feel honored and privileged to be here today.
No, don't be
Thank you
silly,
so
for
much.
goodness sake. Oh, no. It's I just love doing this, and it's great meeting people like yourself and chatting toys and stuff like that. Yeah, awesome stuff. Absolute star. So yep, pay Will a visit, subscribe to his channel, and watch some of his content. Or sorry, shall I say,
Thank
watch
you.
all of his content. Anyhow, that is it for this episode. I just want to say thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate your support. As always, take care, stay safe, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.